Summary of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. In a small town called Little Hangleton, an old groundskeeper named Frank Bryce wakes up to find that local boys have started a fire in the house he takes care of. When he goes to find out what's going on, he finds Voldemort and Wormtail talking about muggles and Quidditch, and a woman named Bertha Jorkins who is now dead. They also say that a boy named Harry Potter was killed. Wormtail kills Frank. Harry Potter, a wizard who is 14 years old, wakes up from this dream miles away. His curse scar hurts. He writes to his godfather, Sirius, because he thinks this means bad news. The next day, Mr. Weasley, Fred, George, and Ron use flu powder to get into the Dursleys' sitting room. Fred and George trick Dudley, who is on a diet, into eating Tung toffee, which makes his tongue grow to be several feet long. When the twins go back to the burrow, this makes Mrs. Weasley mad. Harry meets Bill and Charlie, the two oldest Weasley boys, and finds out that Percy now works for a man named Mr. Crouch at the Ministry of Magic. The next morning, Mr. Weasley takes Harry, Hermione, and his 4 youngest kids to the World Cup using a port key. They go on the trip with Amos Diggory and Cedric, his son. Harry is surprised to see magicians and witches from all over the world at the campsite. Ron looks up to Bulgaria's seeker, Victor Krum, so he is excited about this game. During the day, Harry runs into Mr. Crouch and Ludo Bagman, the head of the Department of Magical Games and Sports, who doesn't seem to care that one of his employees, Bertha Jorkins, has gone missing. The twins made a bet with Bagman on the match, and to their surprise, they won their bet. The Weasleys get to watch the game from the top box, where they meet Winky, Mr. Crouch's house elf. She saves a spot for Mr. Crouch, is afraid of heights, and tells Harry that Dobby loves being free but can't get a job because he wants to be paid. Mr. Weasley wakes the kids up hours after everyone has gone to bed and tells them to get out of the tent because there's a fight going on outside. Harry sees that masked men, who Mr. Weasley thinks are Voldemort's followers, are making the camping owner, Mr. Roberts, and his family float in the air. As Harry, Ron, Hermione, and others run through the woods, Harry sees that he has lost his wand. Draco Malfoy tells the other 3 that Hermione is in danger because she was born a muggle. They see Winky trying to run away from the tents, and a few minutes later, someone nearby sends Voldemort's dark mark into the sky, a green head with a snake for a mouth. Ministry workers show up and say that the 3 of them used magic to make the mark, but then they find Winky in the woods with Harry's wand. Even though Winky says she didn't make the dark mark, Mr. Crouch fires her. Mr. Weasley will spend most of the next week at work. Rita Skeeter, a writer, writes shocking stories about reports of dead bodies, which Mr. Weasley says are nonsense. On the day everyone is supposed to go back to school, Mr. Weasley gets a call telling him to help a man named Mad Eye, whose trash cans attacked him. After the welcome feast, Dumbledore says that Mad Eye Moody will teach defense against the dark arts and explains that Hogwarts will host the Triwizard Tournament, a battle between Hogwarts and 2 other wizarding schools in Europe. He says that only kids older than 17 will be able to take part. People are happy to hear this, but Hermione is furious to find out that there are house elves at Hogwarts. The first couple of weeks of school go well. Hermione starts SPEW, which stands for Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, and forces Harry and Ron to join. Hagrid doesn't want to join and says that it would be bad for the elves because they like to work. In their first lesson with Moody, the Gryffindors learn about the Unforgivable Curses. The kids from the other 2 schools show up on October 30th. Madame Maxime brings students from Beauxbatons in France. She is as tall as Hagrid. Professor Karkaroff brings students from Durmstrang in Eastern Europe. Victor Krum is one of them. Over the next 24 hours, students put their names in the Goblet of Fire. Dumbledore drew an age line around the Goblet of Fire to keep people who were too young from entering. At the Halloween feast, the Goblet names Fleur Delacour as the champion of Beauxbatons, Victor Krum as the champion of Durmstrang, and Cedric Diggory as the champion of Hogwarts. Then it says that Harry is the 4th winner. The people who set up the tournament, Mr. Crouch and Bagman, say that Harry has to take part. Harry is scared, and no one, not even Ron, believes him when he says he didn't put his name in the Goblet of Fire. In the weeks that follow, Harry's life gets worse and worse, especially after Rita Skeeter writes a story about him that barely names any of the other winners. Sirius asks Harry to meet him in the Gryffindor common room the weekend before the task. But before Harry meets Sirius, Hagrid shows Harry that the first task is to deal with dragons. Sirius tells Harry about Karkaroff, who used to be a Death Eater. He is worried that someone will try to kill Harry by using the tournament as a reason. The next day, Harry tells Cedric what the first job is. Moody tells Harry to use his broomstick to get past the dragon after he catches Harry doing this. The next day, Harry does just that, and he gets good grades for it. Ron and Harry also make up. After this, things get better for Harry, and he thinks he has a lot of time until the second job in February to figure out what the strange sound coming from his golden dragon egg hint means. Hermione finds out that both Dobby and Winky are working in the kitchens, but Winky is having trouble adjusting. McGonagall tells Harry about the Yule Ball and makes it clear that he has to bring a girl with him. Harry and Ron have trouble with this job, and Ron fights with Hermione the week before when, as a last option, he asks her. Harry and Ron end up going with Parvati and Padma Patil. At the ball, they find out that Krum's date is Hermione. This makes Ron mad. Even worse, Harry and Ron overhear Hagrid talking to Maxime about being a half-giant, which makes things even worse. Cedric tells Harry to take a bath with his egg after the ball, but Harry doesn't listen to him. In the days that follow, Skeeter writes a story that reveals Hagrid to be a half-giant. Hagrid then goes into hiding and refuses to teach for a few weeks. February comes up quickly, and Harry doesn't decide to listen to Cedric until 2 weeks before the second job. He goes to the bathroom of the prefects, where Moaning Myrtle helps him figure out what the Merpeople's song in the egg means. Moody helps Harry when he falls down a trick stairs on his way back from the bathroom. In exchange, Moody asks to take the Marauder's map. Harry spends all of his free time trying for an hour to figure out how to breathe underwater, but he never does. 10 minutes before the job starts, Dobby wakes Harry up and gives him gillyweed. Harry gets there in time for the race and is the first one to swim to the bottom of the lake, where he finds Ron, Hermione, Cho, and Gabrielle tied up and sleeping. He waits until Cedric and Krum save Cho and Hermione, and then he demands that he and Ron take Gabrielle with them to the top. Ron says Harry was stupid to do this because Gabrielle wouldn't have been hurt, but Harry still gets more points for having moral fiber. Percy takes over as the fifth judge from Mr. Crouch. The three of them bring extra food with them to Hogsmeade, where they meet Sirius. He's worried that Mr. Crouch hasn't been going to the tournament events or to work. Mr. Crouch made his name as a workaholic, and even though he's on the side of good, he abused his power and put his own son in Azkaban for getting involved with the Death Eaters. The next day, Harry, Ron, and Hermione go to see Dobby in the kitchens. They see that Winky is now drinking alcoholic butterbeer to deal with her sadness. Not long after that, Skeeter writes a story in which she says that Hermione plays with Harry and Krum's feelings, and Hermione starts getting hate mail. In May, Harry and the other winners find out that the third job is to find the Triwizard Cup by getting through a maze. Krum asks Harry about his friendship with Hermione after this news. Mr. Crouch, who looks crazy, comes up to them and asks to talk to Dumbledore. Mr. Crouch is gone and Krum has been stunned when Harry and Dumbledore get back. Moody looks for Mr. Crouch in the forest, but he can't find him. The next week in divination, Harry falls asleep and dreams that Voldemort is abusing Wormtail. He screams when he wakes up and runs to talk to Dumbledore. Dumbledore leaves Harry in his office, and Harry uses the pensieve to see Dumbledore's memories of when Death Eaters were put on trial. He sees Karkaroff, Bagman, and a young man he knows to be Mr. Crouch's son on trial for being Death Eaters. When Dumbledore pulls Harry out of the pensieve, he tells him that Neville's parents were tortured by Mr. Crouch's son and that he was sent to prison for it. Harry realizes that he has never asked Neville why he lives with his grandma. Rita Skeeter writes a story about Harry's experience in divination that makes it sound like he's crazy. When Harry walks into the maze on the day of the third job, he feels sure of himself. He and Cedric fight a big spider together, and when it hurts Harry, they decide to tie by touching the cup at the same time. The portkey in the cup takes them to a graveyard. Wormtail kills Cedric, ties up Harry, and uses a spell to bring Voldemort back to his own body. Voldemort calls his Death Eaters and dares Harry to a fight. When Harry and Voldemort curse each other, their wands join, and the shadows of the people Voldemort has killed come out of his wand. They give Harry time to get back to the cup and bring Cedric's body back to Hogwarts. When Harry comes back, Moody takes him away and tells him that he was behind everything. As he gets ready to kill Harry, Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Snape show up. Moody changes into Barty Crouch and, after drinking a truth potion, says that Mr. Crouch kept him alive and locked up at home, but that he has stayed true to Voldemort. Voldemort has been in charge of Mr. Crouch for a few months now, using information he got from Bertha Jorkins. When Barty Crouch went to Hogwarts, he killed his father. Moody is really locked up in his own trunk. Harry goes with Dumbledore to his office, where Sirius and Dumbledore talk about what happened in the graveyard. Harry then goes to the hospital wing and wakes up to find Fudge in his room. Fudge doesn't believe that Voldemort is back. He won't listen to Dumbledore, says that Harry isn't reliable, and has Barty Crouch get the kiss from a Dementor. After Fudge storms off, Dumbledore tells Sirius to tell the old crowd, and Hermione slams her hand against the window. Dumbledore makes it clear at the last feast that Voldemort is back and that Cedric was killed for no reason. Hermione tells Ron and Harry on the train ride home that Rita Skeeter is an illegal animagus who has been spying on them all year as a beetle. Hermione finally caught Rita Skeeter in the hospital wing. As everyone gets off the boat, Harry gives Fred and George his Triwizard Gains so they can open a joke shop. This is because Fred and George lost their money to Bagman when he didn't pay up on their bet.
About the author. Rowling was born outside of Bristol, England, to Peter James Rowling and in Rowling. Rowling wrote a lot of fairy stories as a child. She was very smart for her age. Rowling went to high school and college at Wydene, where her mother worked. Rowling then went to the University of Exeter, where she studied French and ancient Greek and Latin. After that, she worked for Amnesty International in London as a writer and English secretary. Later, Rowling went to Portugal, where she taught English at night and wrote during the day. There, she met Jorge Arance, a Portuguese writer. They got married after 2 years, and their daughter Jessica was born the following year. A few months after Jessica was born, the pair broke up, and Rowling moved with her young daughter to Edinburgh, Scotland. Rowling got the idea for the Harry Potter series in 1990. She wrote the first book of the series while taking a course to become a teacher. Then, in 1995, Rowling finished writing Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. At first, there were only 1,000 prints. 5 months later, the book got its first award. At the beginning of 1998, Scholastic Inc. paid $105,000 for the rights to print the novel in the United States. With each book, Harry Potter became more and more popular and broke sales records. Harry Potter is now a world brand worth about $15 billion, and the movies based on the books have broken box office records. Rowling got married again and had a second child in 2001. She is also known as a generous person who gives a lot of money to fight poverty, social inequality, and multiple sclerosis, which killed her mother. She keeps writing, and under the name Robert Galbraith, she has written several books about crime.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.